Competition in the classroom. Is it a good thing? A bad thing? Should you use it? If so, how? We're going to resolve all of these questions definitively. Stay tuned. Okay, should we have students competing in the classroom? I'm talking about Kahoot. I'm talking about Quizlet games. I'm talking about Gimkit, Jeopardy. Whatever competition looks like in your subject area, should we have them do it? Here's how I approach this question. For every student that loves competition, there's typically a student that hates it. So if you're seeking to build value and excitement and engagement through competition, you just have to be aware that usually for each one that you gain, there's also one that you're going to lose a little bit. Doesn't mean don't use competition. It just means be aware of what's going on with these students who don't like competition. And how can you facilitate competition that's a little more up their alley? I'm not at all an advocate for babying students. Literally up in the front of my class, there is a sign that says, do hard things. This is not a guy who's like worried about hurt feelings, but it is a guy who's obsessed with the 5 key beliefs, ding, beneath student motivation. So why does competition really appeal to some kids? It appeals to some kids because one avenue to valuing the work of learning is the avenue of social status, and another one is enjoyment. And for some students, competition is very enjoyable. Could be their personality, could be their upbringing, could be previous experiences with competition in school that they've liked. And for others, since they tend to do well in competition, they like it because it gives them a sense of social status, of being on top of the heap or in a stone's throw distance from top of the heap. And that's really appealing. That's an avenue into value. Okay, but again, if we think about that rainbow of why, I guess I could just put it on the screen. If a student is consistently at the bottom of the heap after a, let's say, Kahoot or Quizlet Live, then that student can experience not good social status, and that could devalue that work for them. So I think every classroom should seek to serve both of these groups by challenging them to do something that they don't necessarily love to do. So for your competition-loving students, you should have aspects of class that don't involve competition because they need to learn and have experience valuing things that are not competitive. But for your students who hate competition, they need to learn how to compete and find ways to enjoy it. So by all means, incorporate competitive elements into your class structure, but when you do it, I recommend a couple of key things. First, ask your students, who here loves competition? Who here hates it? You can do this just verbally and do a showing of hands. You could have them answer this as a little writing prompt warm-up at the start of class, and then have them discuss it with partners and then share out to the whole group. And after they've shared out, what you want to say is kind of what I was just referring to. In my class, I'm going to create experiences that challenge all of you. That's part of my job. And so for you competition lovers, sometimes we're not going to add a competitive angle to the activities that we do. But for you competition despisers, sometimes we are going to have competition. In the situation where you find yourself a little bit demotivated, that's me giving you an opportunity to grow in your motivation in this area that you don't necessarily naturally love. Second, let's think about the 5 key beliefs right now, and let's pull some applications that we can make to our classroom practice when we're incorporating competition. So in terms of belonging, you need to be aware that competition sends a signal to a student about whether or not they fit here. Is this a place where they belong? And if a student is consistently losing in whatever type of competition you're having in the classroom, that's a pretty clear signal to them that they don't fit. What you can do though is help them to interpret that differently. Help them to understand that, hey, in this type of competition like Kahoot, this really values speed plus accuracy. So if you're just not the fastest person at Kahoot, don't even worry about that. Focus on accuracy, because really when we take our assessment on this unit, it's not going to be about your hair trigger speed of answering questions. That's not going to help you. What's going to help you though is really knowing the material. So when you have this competition, compete with yourself and try to be more accurate this go around with Kahoot than you were previously. What you're doing there is helping your students to reinterpret signals that, oh, I lost the competition, into, okay, but actually I was competing against myself to try to be accurate and I am improving. Which, by the way, focusing on improvement as success is a great way to build efficacy. You need to talk to your students explicitly about what you as the teacher feel is a successful outing in whatever competitive experience you're creating. And so you want to say to them, hey, if you're first place on this Kahoot because you just randomly clicked some answers, but you didn't really think about what was happening, yeah, congratulations, you're on the digital podium for 5 seconds, but you really haven't won. Because winning is growing toward mastery in this class. It's becoming more confident and capable with the material that we're learning. So I'm just going to tell you, students, that sometimes I've seen people at the top of the Kahoot podium who really are not the winners, because when it comes time to take the assessment on the unit, they really struggle because they were so focused on competing that they didn't actually learn. By doing these types of things, you're going to be one, signaling that you're credible, that you understand that not everyone loves competition, and also that you're credible because you care about students enough to give them competitive experiences even when they may not love them. By doing these types of things repetitively in your class, you'll be able to create competitive experiences that are more holistically beneficial, and you'll avoid unintentionally turning some of your students off and basically wasting that competitive chunk of class time for them, because when they become disengaged and they aren't really thinking or trying, it's pretty much dead time for them. Your class looks like this productive learning environment, but for that demotivated kid, they're not really producing learning. So you have other thoughts on making competition a little better? Guess what? I'd love to hear about them. Just put it in the comments because I read all those doggone things. I mean, it's like, well, I don't have anything else to do, you would assume. I just read these comments. No, I have other things to do, but I love to read what you're wrestling with in your classroom because we're all in this together, aren't we? So until next time, colleague, cheers.